Hello again. Steve Gregg, on pages 421 and 422 of his book, Why Not Full Preterism, attempts to refute the preterist argument that, quote, in the resurrection, it is not the same body that is raised, but one that God gives. Now, here is Steve's statement of the preterist position as well as his response. The argument is, in 1 Corinthians 15:35-38, it specifically says that the body that dies is not the body that is raised. These verses say that God gives us a body, which means our physical body will not be raised. Here's Steve's response. One should read what a passage actually says before deciding to use it in an argument. Paul does not say that God gives us a body, though even if he did, it would not make the point that this full preterist intends to establish. Paul is talking about the plant that grows from a seed. The seed dies and then reemerges with whatever body God gives it. To say that God gives the plant a body does not mean that the plant is a different organism from the seed itself. The cells in the actual seed provide the cells and DNA for the plant that grows from it. The plant is not a different organism, but a transformation of the original seed. Now, we will see shortly the seed does not possess the qualities Steve gives it credit for. Paul had said that God gives us a resurrected body. This would not make the intended point of the objector. It is fair to say that God gave Adam and Eve bodies as well. Yet Adam's was made from existing dust and Eve's from Adam's rib. In the resurrection, God gives us bodies made from the decomposed dust of the mortal bodies in which we previously lived. Now, here again is an example of Steve being incomplete in his exegesis. He neglects to read just a few verses below his proof text that changes his whole story. And if this negligence in reading the scriptures in full context continues, one could easily begin to think that this is willful ignorance on Steve's part. But let me insert here a little biology lesson. When you put a seed in the ground and provide the right conditions, water, warmth, and oxygen, a fascinating process begins. First is the awakening. Water is absorbed, triggering enzymes that activate the embryo. It's like waking up a dormant organism. Secondly, we have the anchoring. The very first thing to emerge is usually what's called the radicle, the embryonic root. It pushes through the softened seed coat and grows downwards, securing the tiny plant and starting to draw in water and nutrients from the soil. This is crucial for stability and hydration. Thirdly, the growth must be fueled. Simultaneously, the stored food reserves within the seed, either in structures called cotyledons or in a separate tissue called endosperm, are metabolized. This energy fuels the rapid growth of the root and the upward push of the plumule, which will become the stem and the leaves. Fourthly, there's the shedding of the shell. As the embryo expands and grows, the seed coat breaks apart. It's done its job of protecting the embryo, and now it simply breaks down and decomposes, becoming part of the soil. Finally, the packed lunch is consumed. The cotyledons or endosperm, which held the food, are gradually depleted. In some plants, the cotyledons emerge above the ground, turn green, and briefly act as small leaves, photosynthesizing until the true leaves take over. In others, they stay underground, simply shriveling away once their food is gone. The key takeaway is this: the actual seed, the original package with its food and protective coat, is essentially consumed and broken down. It doesn't grow into the stem, leaves, or roots of the mature plant. Instead, the tiny embryo contained within the seed is what grows. The seed's role is to provide the initial nourishment and protection needed for that embryo to establish itself and become an independent, photosynthesizing plant. Once the seedling can make its own food using sunlight, the remnants of the seed simply decompose back into the earth. Now, this sounds like ashes to ashes, dust to dust to me. So now let's hear 1 Corinthians 15, verses 35 to 38, adding verses 42 to 44. But someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body will they come? How foolish! What you sow does not come to life until it dies. When you sow, you do not plant the body that will be, but just a seed, perhaps of wheat or something else. But God gives it a body as he has determined, and to each kind of seed he gives its own body. So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown is perishable, it is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. And it is sown a natural body, and it is raised a spiritual body. Hear that? It is raised a spiritual body, not a natural physical body. In Luke 24:39, Jesus says to his disciples who supposed they were seeing a spirit, he said, "Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have." A spiritual body would not have flesh and bones. Elsewhere, Jesus described our heavenly state being as angels in Mark 22:30. So Steve concludes his response by saying that in the resurrection, God gives us bodies made from the composed dust of the mortal bodies which we previously lived. That is not what the Apostle Paul states. It's pure conjecture, and it's fueled by bias. Now, I'm going to end here. Please like if this resonates with you. Comment if you disagree, but you have to tell me why. I'm out for now.